Wow.
Well, 'tis the season of goodwill, festive cheer, and sometimes family arguments.
So as you gather with your loved ones for Christmas dinner, what merry manners can you use to help keep the peace? Here to weigh in is psychology expert Dr. Gina Loudon. Merry Christmas.
Nice to be with you. Merry Christmas to all of you.
We're so happy to have you here. So one of the big conversations that often comes up is politics at the table. Is it a do or a don't, or maybe both?
You know, it's funny. Most psychologists will say don't discuss politics and religion over the holidays. But I have to say our world is in some serious trouble right now. And I think sharing faith with your family and in the perspective of what's happening to our world and our freedoms, this Christmas might be a little bit different on that. However, if you have that one relative who kind of always baits you, you know that one. I think if they're going to bait you just so you can so it can, you know, kind of escalate and you know that's what's going to happen, I think you can just say to that person, isn't it so great that we can disagree on politics but we can still love each other on Christmas? And that's a good way to just kind of divert the topic a little bit.
What about having well-defined times, like for the big Christmas feast, say? Should we just allow people to come in and graze all day long, and then once everybody gets there, then decide on the time to eat, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, I think having a really well-defined start and finish time, I think that you have to be really clear about we're going to arrive at this time, we're going to leave at that time, so that there's no guilting and there's no disagreement afterwards about what you had agreed to previously. And if you can put that in writing, even in the form of a text to the host, hey, can't wait to see you at 2 o'clock, you know we have to leave at 7, and you can stick to that, then you avoid that uncomfortable, you know, we have to go. But be sure you figure time in there to help with prep and to help with cleanup, because that's important to your host.
So if I hear you correctly, then you're talking about practicing some consideration and some tenderness when you're talking and planning and getting there.
Yeah, so you also say, you know, I think often, as happens in my house, one person can do all the work, and that can end up causing some frustration. But you say show up with a gift or at least be a part of the process, and that means everybody.
I think that's everybody, and especially if you don't know the family very well, you're a guest, then bring a hostess gift, if you will. And consider in your hostess gift, you know, you don't want to give your host that doesn't drink a bottle of wine, or your host that's on a diet, homemade cookies. You know, consider your gifts that you bring or your contribution to the meal to target the host of the party that you're going to. And that's the other thing. I think people really need to get in there and be a part of it, unless that hostess, like myself, kitchen's domain for me, and I kind of want everybody out of the way because I'm so ADD. If they're there, I'm distracted. So if that's the case and they say, hey, thanks, I've got this, then that's okay, you're free to go. But otherwise, definitely help with the prep and cleanup if you can.
And Gina, how do we know how long to stay if the host doesn't give us a solid start time and end time? How do we know that we're not wearing out our welcome?
Yeah, I think that's important. Again, less than 2 hours might almost hurt some feelings, but more than 5 hours, especially if there have been any problems in the past, people might start to get tired. You know, the carb crash sets in, and then that might lend itself to some problems. So if we plan ahead, you know, these Christmas and holiday incidents are a lot kind of like labor is for moms. We forget before we have the next child. We forget what the tensions were last holiday before we do this holiday. So some careful planning and allowing for personal space. Things like maybe considering getting a hotel room if there have been problems in the past and you're out of town, away from home. Those kinds of things can divert a lot of problems that we see typically over the holiday season and lend itself to a lot more peace for everybody.
Yeah, which is what it's all about, is having peace at home this time of year, which isn't always the case. Dr. Gina Loudon, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry Christmas.